Recently, the Prime Minister of India issued an unusual directive to the public: stop buying gold. Why would a national government concern itself with the personal jewelry purchases of its citizens? India is celebrated as the fastest-growing major economy in the world. Yet, for a middle-class salaried worker, the reality is confusing. You feel poorer every year. Your salary might rise, but the volume of goods and services you can actually afford seems to shrink. This chart shows the steady depreciation of the rupee against the US dollar over the last decade. Looking at the current trajectory, economic analysts offer a sobering projection. The rupee could hit a historic low of 150 to a single US dollar. That middle-class anxiety is rooted in a specific economic reality. There are underlying structural imbalances at work that are diluting personal wealth even as the national GDP reaches new heights. The government's gold warning stems from a massive trade imbalance. India imports roughly 800 tons of gold every single year, but produces only 1 ton within its own borders. This dependency isn't limited to just jewelry. Whether it's crude oil, pharmaceutical ingredients from China, or agricultural fertilizers, the core drivers of the economy must be purchased overseas and paid for in US dollars. To settle these massive import bills, the central bank must constantly sell rupees to acquire the necessary dollars. This persistent selling pressure on the national currency works to lower the rupee's value in the global market. Domestic businesses struggle to break this cycle. High commercial taxes and some of the highest industrial electricity rates make it significantly more expensive to manufacture these materials at home than to simply buy them from abroad. Because India remains a net consumer of critical industrial materials rather than a primary producer, the constant rising demand for dollars exerts a persistent downward drag on the rupee. If the currency is falling and imported goods cost more, you might wonder why the official inflation rate is reported as being so low. The answer lies in how the government calculates the Consumer Price Index. This pie chart shows the CPI basket. A massive 46% of the index is allocated to basic food items like onions and rice. This weighting tracks the survival costs of the mass population, which are critical metrics for winning elections. But look at the microscopic slivers left over for everything else. The costs that actually define a middle-class budget, like private school fees and healthcare diagnostics, are either underweighted or missing entirely from this survival-focused metric. This is why the official inflation rate of 4 to 6% feels wrong. For a salaried professional, the actual cost of living is often compounding at a much higher invisible rate. The government is measuring inflation for a different economic reality, effectively masking the financial drain on middle-class households. To protect their savings from a falling currency and hidden inflation, Indian families have historically turned to a single asset class, real estate. However, the housing market has decoupled from actual housing needs. Over 2 crore luxury homes sit empty across India, while only 12% of new construction is designed to be affordable. These properties often act as physical vaults rather than homes. They are used to park off-the-books cash and offshore remittances, keeping prices high even when local demand from actual residents is low. This shift has priced a generation out of the market. With housing functioning as a vault for wealth, the middle class is increasingly unable to find a home they can actually afford to own. India's headline growth isn't a fiction, but it is divided. The current system places the heavy burden of a weak rupee and hidden inflation squarely on the middle class, while the largest gains are concentrated in assets like luxury real estate. Addressing this requires more than just assembling foreign parts. India must pivot toward deep manufacturing, producing the raw materials and components it currently imports, to stop the constant outflow of dollars. Until this dependency is addressed, the structural forces pushing the currency lower will persist. Without a shift in how India produces and taxes its own goods, the rupee will continue to move toward that 150 mark. The next time you see a headline about a booming national GDP, measure the economy by your own reality. Check your grocery bill, the value of your currency, and the cost of a home, because that is the economy you actually live in.